LegacyMaker, the All Sports Network, presents a SIRTOBA Media production where the struggle is real to be awesome.
5, 4, 3, 2.
The wait is over.
So you're giving it to Dale Earnhardt Jr. because he piggybacked off of his dad's name. The only difference was because there was a junior at the end and not a senior.
Yes, and
Okay.
because the fact is, Drew.
Point with, oh my God. I had Miami Heat winning last night. I was upset too when they lost this with you because of the fact of what you.
Get your popcorn ready. It's time for the In or Out sports debate with your hosts,
Professional wrestler Ellis Pollard
and Drew Willingham.
That's right. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to a very special episode 30 of the In or Out Sports Debate. I'm your host, Drew Willingham, along with this week's special guest, well known here in the Richmond, Virginia area. He is professional wrestler Ellis Pollard. Welcome to the show, sir. Ellis is here. I promise you that. With that, while we figure out what's going on with his screen, let's go ahead and acknowledge the Vault of Fame. And with the Vault of Fame is where we acknowledge the previous participants here on the In or Out Sports Debate. Go ahead and click that now.
Acknowledge me.
And here with the Vault of Fame, we acknowledge the previous participants here with the previous episodes now that we are at a very special episode 30. And with that, first episodes 1 through 11, we had Rob Johnson. Episode 12, we had Tyrone Montgomery Jr. Episode 13, we had Corey Mann of the Undisputed Champions was here. Episode 14, we had Greg Anthony, the Golden Boy. Episode 15, we had Tyrone Montgomery Jr. here back again for an all-NBA edition on episode 15. Episode 16, we had the Snowman in the Morning co-host, Brian Snow, here for episode 16. Episode 17, we had Darrell Owens, former Mr. Rollback for Walmart Supercenters, here for episode 17. Episode 18, we had Brian H. Waters of the Wrestling Realm podcast here to discuss all wrestling majority of that episode. Episode 19, we had James Brown of the LegacyMaker Sports Network here for the In or Out Sports Debate. Episode 20, Wale Ekinso of Fox Sports was here to discuss a lot of football and basketball. Episode 21, the son of the Golden Boy, Greg Anthony, Xander Anthony, Kid NBA historian for the second ever All-NBA edition here on the In or Out Sports Debate. Episode 22 was the other half of the Undisputed Champions. Wally was here to discuss a lot of professional wrestling and football. Episode 23, Pisco, Paul Schofield was here to discuss a lot of topics within this realm of sports. Episode 24, Corey Mann of the Undisputed Champions returned to discuss a lot of topics here on the In or Out Sports Debate. Episode 25, Joe Dillard Jr. was here to discuss a lot of hot topics here on episode 25. Episode 26, BCQ, Becca Cottingham Quimby was here for the first ever NASCAR edition. Followed by episode 27, Lamont Thomas was here last night for the first of two for Double Debate Monday, followed by James Brown last night for the other half of that. And earlier this evening, Darrell Owens and Jeremiah Quimby were here for the first ever Trios edition here on the In or Out Sports Debate, episode 29. First part of Double Debate Tuesday, they were here for that for episode 29. But right now, I got a very special guest joining me for episode 30. We're about to bring him in now. He is Mr. Ellis Pollard. Mr. Pollard, welcome to the show, sir.
Thank you for having me, Drew.
Hey, anytime. Thank you for sticking with me. I know that was an earful. We got to acknowledge the previous participants, and without you guys, I wouldn't have a show. So thank you for taking the time to be here. I got to acknowledge you, just like Roman Reigns says at the beginning. Got to acknowledge you. And for that one last acknowledgement, you can find the In or Out Sports Debate on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Twitch, and I got to make a graphic for now Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, as well as Apple Podcasts, which will be syndicated after we go live this evening. So with all that, we got a fire episode here with Mr. Pollard here. But before we get into that, I want to give a little bit of a background And Jacob Sexton, who is a friend of the network, created a very, very good interview for you a while back. And it's about 1 minute and 50 seconds. I'd like to share this with our viewers here.
Watch wrestling back. You're talking about Ric Flair back in the, I guess, mid and early, late 80s. So from there, it just became such an interest of mine. I was like, man, I would love to be one of those guys.
And today, he is. Ellis Pollard has been wrestling professionally for about 10 years. He is constantly competing as a member of classic pro wrestling. But he thinks back to his first night at wrestling school.
It was hard. I mean, trying to learn how to take bumps. That first night, obviously, I didn't get it, but I kind of got the concept of it. So I just kept going. I wanted to get it. I was really nervous. I had butterflies.
Now, wrestling's more than just about glamorous entrances. It's about character development and making sure that you're physically able to compete.
I got into working out at some point because of pro wrestling.
Pollard's wrestling character is known as Salvation. He will soon face Sledge Gibson.
Athletic as a kid. I played a lot of football when I was younger. I didn't do anything with it. Watching WrestleMania one day, and I was like, you know what? I'm a wrestling fan. I could do that.
And he has done that. Gibson has risen to the top of his industry in about a year. One wrestling icon says that the profession is shifting towards younger competitors.
It's changed because you got nothing but new guys now. And their training takes a long time to get them right.
Pollard is one of the older guys now. And still believes he can hold his own in the ring.
So I'm getting older, over 40, so it's like, as an athlete, you know, a lot of athletes retire around that time. Really never stop learning, or you never stop teaching people, no matter what it is. You can always become better in life or in the ring.
For VCU Insight, I'm Jacob Sexton.
Pollard will compete in the Classic Pro Wrestling Championship on April 20th in Alette, Virginia.
You said it there, man. You said it. You know, it's harder to compete after 40. Give our viewers a little bit of insight what it's like to be Ellis Pollard now, and what are you doing these days, you know, given with all that?
I'm taking my time, first of all. I guess if I was in big leagues, WWE, AEW, I'd probably be considered a part-timer. I try not to wear myself out so I can stay as long as I can over the years. Maybe not as long as Ric Flair, but, you know, as close as possible. At some point, you got to know when to hang up the boots, to lay them in the ring. And, you know, I would rather see some of the younger talent that's starting up, some of the green guys and girls do their thing, and not me having to be in their spot of space, taking up their space, so that they can cultivate and become what they're supposed to become or what they want to become in this industry. And all at the same time, I would like to help them more than the guys that's already been doing it for a while, because they're on their way, like Sledge Gibson and a few others. And the people that was there to help train me, it's hard to put it into context unless you're really there in the element of it. A lot of people speculate, a lot of marks think that certain ways it should go this way, or that didn't go the way that it seemed like it should have. But it's so much more to it than that. Business-wise, as well as the business you do inside the office or the square circle. I don't know. All in all, I like to see where it's going to go, especially here locally. My whole goal at the end of not at a place centrally for them to train, legitimate place, not just a place that somebody's, you know, all due respect, backyard, or you know, they got to do what they got to do so they can put it wherever they have to put it. And but I want to have it in a facility or a building, something that people can drive down the street and see the banner up, you know, a legit place for people to train if they want to get into pro wrestling, or if they're already in pro wrestling to hone their skills, or just even to get in shape, because it's going to be a, you know, kind of a gym attached to that as well. So that's my goal going forward, you know.
I'd say it's a really good goal, because there's not enough of that in our area, like we were talking about. You know, if you go further north, or, you know, in somewhat south, mainly further north, you'll find it, but not so much in our area here in in which is sad, the capital of Virginia. You know, when you really think about it, it's really, really sad. But when you really put all that in perspective, we do have some fire topics. I want to use, you know, part of what you're saying here to kind of contribute towards these topics going forward. So with that said, let's go ahead and roll this into round one.
Round one.
And here with round one, we'll go ahead and take this into wrestling needs to be more consistent with reality and storylines and less with the gimmicks. And it looks like I'll have to take this one first. Looks like Ellis having a little problem with his feed for a second. I'll go ahead and take this one first. And with this, when it comes to more reality and storylines and less with the gimmicks, I gotta go in. And with me going in with this, it's because, with some of the things like Nikki ASH and some of the characters they've had in the past, I mean, they even had to revamp Alexa Bliss's character, for crying out loud, because of everything, because of the way her character was going. So with all that said, of course, you need to do more reality and storylines and less with gimmicks. I kind of want to see something more like in AEW, what like Jon Moxley, a real life brawler, like he's going to come to you in the bar. And he's going to look like he's the guy that can whoop some mother, father, and ass, okay? He's the guy that I want to be watching out there in the ring, and not some flying around like the Hurricane from the back. Even though the Hurricane had a great character and it was pretty fun, pretty funny, like, what's up with that? What he would say, back then. I would have to like that character as probably one of the ones that would say maybe I'm a little hypocritical for saying it, right? But when it comes to wrestling needs to be more consistent with the reality and the storylines and less with the gimmicks. Yes, they need to be more consistent with the topics in their storylines overall in general, because we don't want to see a 3-week storyline that builds up to a crappy pay-per-view or now live event match. We want to see something that has been building over time, and that's what I feel like AEW has the slight edge over WWE with that. And how do you feel about that, Mr. Pollard? Are you in or are you out on this one?
Oh, I'm in.
Mr. Pollard is in. The floor is yours.
Man, if I can stress anything, to me personally, if you don't have a story, you're just having people compete. Which, at some point in time and shows, depending on how long and stuff that show goes, of course, you're going to need some fillers, and you got people that's trying to, get used to being out there full time on the camera and this, that, and the other. But when it comes to the majority of the show, I would prefer, if I was running a company, for everybody to have some type of storyline. I don't care if they started that storyline a year ago, a few weeks ago, but I wouldn't want it to be consistent. Reason being, when I grew up watching NWA wrestling locally back in the 80s, you would always have, every stable had some type of storyline, whoever they were facing. And it almost seemed like it was good versus evil a lot of times. But it always had a storyline to it, whether it was Dusty Rhodes and Ric Flair, whether it was the Four Horsemen versus the Road Warriors. The story of this was consistent. If they brought somebody like new in that came in like Sting, it was consistent. You had to choose a side, but it continued a story. And within that story, it's almost like having a Marvel movie where you got the first ignition of the movie, then you got the second, it just continues on and it builds and builds. The exciting part about all that is, in wrestling, I don't care if you do, I wouldn't do 1,000 moves, probably can't. But if you got somebody that's, for instance, doing one move, they might take one bump or get one body slam. And whoever he's wrestling, say that's the face. If the heel coming in, you can tell a story around all that with just that one bump. They used to work a body part all the time. I miss that. Like, you see it sometimes now, but not really. It's more of like the big pop for the spots, which is great in some instances, but you see it all the time. I want to hear like a story. I want to see a story that's like a soap opera. Wrestling really is, used to be considered a soap opera for men. That's what the quote unquote people used to say. And when you really look back at the old days, I would specifically say 60s, 70s, 80s. If you look at all the old footage, it really told a story. And I mean, when they laid it in, and it the action was, it was there. It was, like, wow, that just happened. But not just that, not just the moves. That story would have been told with a punch or the type of match that it built up to, because they would territories, they used to have a little local show, but that would build up for them to come to the person's town. Now, granted, we got all this technology and pay-per-view or premium events now. They got to build to that every week. Everything changed once the Monday Night War started. And yes, it got really exciting. The stories were great. I feel like somewhere along the way, it kind of went downhill and it was just like blah, in my opinion. And then AEW came. Of course, for a while, Vince didn't have any competition. He brought everybody out and had everybody there. And then he got all the indie people, which was great. But I felt like they were overstaffed. They didn't have enough shows to put all these people to display their talent. And these are some great workers. So now the AEW's here. I mean, I feel like, not saying that they're really competing, but I've seen the content get a lot more productive as far as like storylines. Not a whole lot of them. And sometimes, of course, we don't know what goes on behind the scenes. Some stuff is like going on that we would probably never hear about unless it comes out or unless they decide to let it come out. So I feel like some of the storylines, like for instance, Sasha Banks, it gets cut short because of whatever really is going on behind the scenes. You understand what I mean? So I think when you factor that in, and of course now you got social media that tells you everything, the secret of every profession that you could possibly think of, including wrestling. It's just out there. And some people honestly speculate until you hear it from the horse's mouth. So
even though we hate it, we got to acknowledge politics is in everything. Politics has a lot to play with this too, and how your gimmick or your storyline or what, and money too. If you're drawing, you're gonna get the top ones. Like Seth Rollins, that's the way they've been changing his gimmick. I mean, it's because he's still drawing money, even this late in the game. Him and Roman, they've been finding ways to draw money. That's why they're the ones that are on top. And they have, Seth has got more of a gimmick. It seems like with, he went from the drip god to where he's now this Joker-like character. So, I mean, they're bouncing around, but it's working. So if it's working and it's bringing in the bucks, you're going to keep going with it because politics is everything.
Exactly.
We hate it, whether we want to acknowledge it or hate, we got to be real. It's part of it. So with that, we definitely crushed it here with round one so far. Let's keep it going here with another topic here that you'll definitely be able to help me out, knock out the park with round two.
Round two.
Just talking about this earlier, man. Just talking about how you hope you can be able to keep up with the legend, the nature boy, Ric Flair. With this one, with round two, we talk about Andrade will help put Ric Flair over the way a wrestling legend deserves in his final match. How do you feel about that, Ellis? Are you in or are you out on this?
I'm going to say in. Now, this is a tough one because it's going to be a tag match. And in the business, I guess that would make sense. Come on, Ric Flair is, upper 70s, and he's still going? That's amazing in itself. But I feel like that's the right combination. I mean, I think on the opposing team, if it was me looking back as a fan, as a kid, I would probably want somebody like Ricky Steamboat or Sting in there just because of the history. But I think it makes sense to have. I think he's going to get put over the right way. And I mean, I've been looking at the promos and everything they did leading up into it. And I mean, I'm looking at like, damn, wait a minute, this is a worker that, what's going on here? Because I mean, SummerSlam's coming, right? But my radar is more on this with Ric Flair and what they get ready to do for this final match. And be honest with you, like when we go back to what we was talking earlier, the story, it's a story right there. And I'm more intrigued and interested in that than a whole card of a big premium pay-per-view, to be honest with you. So I think all in all, it's going to get put over the right way, considering you got all that knowledge there in the ring, one with Ric Flair and then even on his opposing teammates. I think it's perfect. Jay Lethal is great. Like, I mean, I don't think he get enough respect right now, personally, for his body of work. Like, I feel like, I mean, I don't know, WWE might not be for him or vice versa, but I look at him at one of the best workers out there that's been there for a while, amongst a lot of them. And Andrade, I feel like he's just getting his start. Like, he's been around for a while. But
he was underutilized in WWE. Sorry, he was underutilized.
It was disappointing, very disappointing. Yeah. So that's my take on it, though. I think it's going to be something to see, whether you're into wrestling or not. And even if you're not into wrestling, a lot of people and rappers know who Ric Flair is. So
absolutely,
I think
absolutely. Do what? Sorry, my bad.
I think it's just interesting. Like, you could be a fan or not. I think this is the thing to go watch. I think to see how this goes out, and it's going to be something. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be all out wrestling. Bottom line.
It's definitely going to be interesting to see, and I really want to go in, and I really do, because I want to see Flair succeed here, but I got to go out. In 2008, he had his moment with Shawn Michaels. He had it, and he deserved to go out the way that he did. I think Andrade is going to do a great job, and I don't want to take anything away from what you just said or anything with what Andrade is going to potentially do. And those promo videos and everything leading up to this match have been gold. Okay, I've been watching it. I've been getting hype. I want to see it. All right. I'm not trying to be a hater or anything here. I'm just trying to, in my own mind, be realistic with this statement, thinking back on what Shawn Michaels did for Ric Flair and the way that he went in out in that match, even though it was a loss, but the way that was celebrated that entire weekend, from the Hall of Fame induction to his family, the shot of the family, like crying, everything. He had that while his son was still alive. I mean, when you put all this into perspective, that was the perfect time and the best way for anyone to help put Ric Flair over. So when I think about Andrade would help put Ric Flair over a way a wrestling legend deserves in a final match, I feel like he's going to do his job for today in 2022. But when I think about that statement in general, I really think about what Shawn Michaels did for Ric Flair, and that trumps this, in my opinion, when I really put it in perspective.
That is true. That was classic. You can't get that back. You can't recreate that either. And it was respectful. You know what I mean? Even when the way that it ended with the handshake and the hug and the I love you, and it just, that one hit home. I felt like I was getting ready to tear up on the inside, and I don't really cry. And I don't think this is not going to be that by far.
No, but those vignettes leading up to the match, I swear, have been great. I've been loving watching it on YouTube. I can't take away anything from that or their creativity in this moment. But for what Ric Flair's been through, I think it's a little bit of lunacy, and especially that so many people are promoting it the way it is. It's partial on a lot of things in those levels. But we nailed it with that one. I got some breaking news we got to cover real quick, though. And that breaking news is this. Next week, we will be having 5 volumes of the best of episodes 1 through 25. On Monday, we'll have 3 episodes, episode 1 through 5 at 6 p.m., episode 6 through 10 at 7 p.m., episode 11 through 15 at 8 p.m. On the next day, on Tuesday, episode 16 through 20 at 7 p.m., episode 21 through 25 at 8 p.m. 5 volumes next Monday and Tuesday of the first 25 episodes of the In or Out Sports Debate. You can check out the best round from each episode in those volumes, and that's how it's basically laid out. So if you got some time, check it out. Definitely some interesting and definitely entertaining things to watch. And you can check them out here on the In or Out Sports Debate Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, and Twitch, as well as the LegacyMaker Sports Network, the home of the In or Out Sports Debate. You can check us out here on LegacyMakerSports.com. You can see up in the top left corner above us. So Mr. Pollard has been here for 2 rounds so far of the In or Out Sports Debate. We have definitely been crushing it so far. We have a 3rd round here to get through, and this one is definitely going to be some fire. Let's get into it.
Round 3.
The former Cesaro, man, this has been one of my favorite wrestlers of the past decade or so that's been well televised, that we've gotten to know. And with this one, AEW will not make the same mistake that WWE did in underutilizing Claudio Castagnoli. How do you think about that? Are you in or are you out on this one?
Out.
He's out.
Yeah. Now, this one is kind of like, it's going good, I guess you could say right now, but I got a gut feeling that this is not going to, it's not going to play, at least in my head, like I thought it would have. Like, I thought that last run in WWE, they were actually going to just go ahead and make up for all that time they lost with such a great worker and great gimmicks and everything. I'm kind of on the fence about with what AEW is going to do. I got to see it to believe it, basically. That's all I got on that. It's just like, I don't know. I gotta wait and see. I can't really even judge on it yet because they got somebody that is top tier. he's proved it coming up from the Indies and everything all over the world to WWE. Of course, they dropped the ball on him quite a few times. And now I was like, he's probably going to go to AEW. You know, I was like, man, I know his contract was coming up, and let's see what they do with him. It's turning, but I feel like I'm not there yet. It's not. I'm not convinced. I don't know. How you feel about that?
I gotta disagree, man. I think I'm gonna go in. You know, with this, I feel like AEW won't make the same mistake. They've already put the strap on him. They've already been, putting him as a big top guy here in ROH as their secondary promotion. They're going to be using in a similar facet of NXT for WWE, it looks like. Except for they're actually holding pay-per-views and more live event. Well, I wouldn't say more because NXT is a weekly show, but it seems like it's got a higher stature with ROH shows, and we've got just a wild card of different performers within those cards. So with the fact that they're going to be having him carry that invisible promotion or however you want to call it, with whatever it is, I think that's big, and I think that they're already making a statement here in less than 90 days since he's come into the company. I've always, like I was saying before, he's been one of my top ones I've been looking at for over a decade now, here in WWE, now in AEW. But I like the swing, man. The swing, and to get them dizzy and just toss them around. That's been one of my favorite, but it's a fan favorite move. But you got that, and there's like a handful of moves that really draw you in, and that's one of them. It's so simple, but it's dynamic. It's great. It gets the point across. So he's definitely great with creativity with that.
Definitely, I can see it, but I'm gonna give it a year. I'm nervous about what I would like to see him though. I guess I don't know if you say cross promote, but having them do some stuff where maybe I want to say an invasion, something like that. But I want to see him go over to the AEW roster. Actually, eventually. I hope that's what they're planning. So that's why I say I was out. I want to see if they have him jump over there. I mean, of course, he's going to be able to help out ROH. All those guys there are really great too. But I want to see what they do with him going forward beyond that. So just got to see it.
We got to see if their money's where their mouth is, and they think they're so much better than WWE. Now it's all changed with creative, so you're really at a war with them now, and see what you can really do. You got modern versus modern, a younger mindset versus younger mindset. It's not the old school anymore. It's going to change, and I think it's going to be for the better. We're going to see some true competition. Yeah. With true competition, and when it comes to debate, we actually have a good amount of comments to start us out here for the Medial Mayhem. Let's go ahead and go over these midway comments real quick. First of all, thank you fans who are watching right now, who've got some words to chime in for us. So far, we do have one person that's consistent. The chosen one has arrived, and he has this to say. What's up, Salvation and Drew, popping in, talking in, here with the In or Out Sports Debate. So thank you for being here, chosen one. We appreciate your participation. He says, that's a cool interview clip. That's legacy right there. Talking about that interview clip from Jacob Sexton that we played at the beginning of the show, showcasing you at the beginning. We need OG Bray Wyatt. That's what he feels we need for WWE. So we need the original. He even goes into say NXT Bray. Ooh. What do you think about that? You've seen the evolution of Bray Wyatt from start to, since he hasn't been around the past year and a half. What do you think? Do we need NXT Bray?
I feel like I kind of agree with that, but I bet you we won't. If he comes back, and he probably will at some point somewhere here, it's going to show up. Because he loves the business. I know he want to keep working. He still got it. I feel like they would never go back to that, though. They would take whatever he has when he left and maybe kind of reinvent it. Of course, the game is about to change, no pun intended. I mean, it won't change today or tomorrow, but it's going to be a gradual thing where that might be something that's possible. I would love to see that.
Yeah, I think that would be pretty interesting. He would definitely have to go back to his roots, so to speak, to do that. But we wanted to see him go forward. We don't want to see him go too far backwards. So we'll see chosen one. We'll see what he does with that. And we'll see where he shows up. If he shows up in another outside promotion as Wyndham, like he was teasing before, or if he comes back as Bray Wyatt, we'll see. It's been a long time coming. I think he's been gone long enough for the fans to miss him. He definitely did his ventures into doing the movies and stuff like that. I'm a Bray Wyatt fan. I thought he was doing great with that character up until they did whatever they did to get him out of wrestling. I didn't really like the way they did it with Alexa Bliss. I think it wasn't really a fan favorite for many people. It dissolved the character right there, which now we're seeing TV 14 pop back up for Raw. So who knows? Maybe they can bring it back and get really creative with the character that they've changed it from PG era.
That would be great. That would be cool.
What we can't see on SmackDown, we can see on Raw, and that's where he was showcased a lot, was on Raw.
Exactly. I can see that.
So we'll see, man. Definitely good point, Chosen One. I like that. Yeah. He also says, good point with Flair, Drew. I think we've lost sight of that. I think talking about with Shawn Michaels, doing the job for him and what we were going in with through that. I mean, it's hard for me to see anybody else topping that. I love to see it, but I don't think at this point, and not only that, but the venue. I mean, that was WrestleMania, the Super Bowl of professional wrestling of all independent or big leagues. Okay, that's the Super Bowl that you can definitely agree. With that, it's definitely. It doesn't get any better than that. So
it doesn't nowhere.
That's why I don't want to take away from what you said, because I think for the current juncture, yes, that's why it's kind of a hard one to answer. So I think we're both right if we want to give it to ourselves. I think we're both right with that one. And then the Chosen One has another one. This one's kind of wild, goes off the rails a little bit. Cesaro, what he meant, will suck and get released. What?
They might make him suck, but he don't suck.
No, he doesn't suck. That's why I got to pull this out.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, to the no.
Chosen One, what are you thinking? He's going to come out here, at least spell his name right, and at least get it right with the current age. His name is Claudio Castagnoli ever since he got released by WWE. He is no longer Cesaro anymore, Chosen One. So why don't you stop smoking vitamins and get your comments together on my show? And with that said, this is how they really feel about your comments. And lastly, because I got to make it a 3 for 3, here we go, Chosen One.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Thank you, Sandra Brown. Thank you. And I know because I edited the interview and it said her name was Sandra Brown. So, yes, thank you, Sandra Brown, for that shout out to OSB. There you go. Take that, Chosen One. Get your comments together. Stop smoking vitamins on my show and making comments. So, with that, we've actually hit the medial mayhem. We've gone through our comments. We got 2 more rounds to get through. And with that, let's go ahead and take this into round 4.
Round 4.
With round 4, we cover Cody Rhodes' injury will hurt the momentum he built up since his return to WWE. How do you feel about this, Ellis? Are you in or are you out on this?
I'm out. Timing is everything. Now, all this stuff that's happening now, if it didn't happen with Vince out, I feel like it probably would have killed his momentum coming back. But this is the thing. If he can come back at the proper time, and, in the back of our heads, we know he's coming back after so many months whenever the doctor releases him. If all the stars align is right, and it's at a big event going into WrestleMania season, like, say, the Royal Rumble, and he's a surprise entry or, somewhere around that time, I think he's right back in there, just where he left off at. And he wants to go and get one of those big gold belts, one of those big championships and honor his father. I could see that happening. I don't think his momentum is gonna go anywhere. He's come back in that short period of time and done some big things in that last match. Woo! Y'all saw that. I mean, like, I couldn't imagine trying to pull that much time in a match, in that type of match, and the way that match was worked. I mean, it couldn't have been no better for what he had going on at the time. And it was going back to earlier, we was talking about that story he was telling, and that exposed, wound that he had there. All of that was telling the story, and he got through that match. I think people go remember that. And then when he comes back, it's on.
I'd say you covered that beautifully. I'd have to agree. I'm out on this as well. I couldn't have said it any better. Like the way he came out there with that torn pec, there's so many people in other less physical sports that wouldn't have came out with a torn pec like that. People don't even want to walk the mailbox to get their mail out of their mailbox when they got a torn pec, man. So I mean, like, yeah, it's tough. Like, you got a significant other in the house, Corey could be like, hey, can you go grab that real quick? I got a torn pec. I need to chill here. That's what the doctor said. Yeah. Cody Rhodes comes out there, takes his vest off, takes his coat off. And I swear I think the reactions at home. I mean, how there's certain moments in sports history where they video somebody because of their reaction was going to be in that moment. Yep. I swear we need a compilation video of like so many people's reaction to that, because that would have been priceless. Just that the bruised area on that looked so painful. Just to take the jacket off, let alone go through a match for almost 15 minutes is what he did.
And let me tell you, those chops hurt like hell. So to have that and then, whoo.
It hurt us to watch it. And before I go further, it did, because we both disagreed, it did unlock an installment of this.
To the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell, no, no, to the no, no.
We finally got to that point of the show. We both disagreed on something. We've had points where we both agreed on something. We disagreed on the Chosen One's comment. That was that wild out loudish one. But with this one, we both disagree on the fact that Cody Rhodes was tough. But the way I think if he would have possibly not had that match, even though we would have understood, I think that this even sent him even more over the top to where we're really going to be looking at him as a top guy when he comes back.
Yes,
like you said, Royal Rumble-ish time, right before WrestleMania, they're going to find a way to plug him in and at least get him into the main event scene at WrestleMania one way or another. Will he win the championship? I don't know. Maybe they might make him wait till SummerSlam to make sure that his body can hold up after coming back and rehab. And I think, I don't know if they'll throw the championship on him right away, but I think what he did in that match with the torn pec deserved a championship run right there, in my opinion, just because when it's against the wall with him, he's not going to go out there with a pussified injury and say, I can't go, boss. He's going to fight through it until the doctor says, yo, Cody, you got to sit at home for 9 months. Like that's literally what just happened now. Like, go out there and do this, but then we got to have some surgery, and you cannot go out there and do it again until you rehab. Because now you got to teach your body in that area over and over again what to do, what you've been doing for over 20 years. Well, for about 20 years now.
Yeah, that's hard. That's really hard.
And you being a professional as well, you understand what it's like to, have injuries, rehab, and take time to heal up and stuff like that. It's no joke. Even though this stuff's predetermined, it's still a dance for real. You still got to go out there and take the bumps. You know it's coming, but it's still tough. I mean, it feels like a regular day at work, but sometimes this regular day at work consists of injuries, and you gotta go heal up from them.
Keep going. And that's a hard thing to get in somebody's head unless you actually done something like that in any sport. You're still taking a risk of like, man, if you injure certain injuries again, do you come back? Like you seen Triple H come back from 2 torn quads, came back better than ever, stuff like that. And I'm looking like, man, those people at the time, I didn't know they finished the match with that type of injury that some people couldn't even stand on. You know what I mean? Like they would have been carrying me or dragging me to the back probably, because of the pain. Of course, you out there, your adrenaline and everything is going. I got this on because my elbow was kind of jacked up this past weekend. And I didn't feel anything until after the match was over. I was like, hey, I can't really, it's just like a strain though. It's a pull, but I couldn't even wash my back up. I can't even bend it right. It's healing though. Just that right there compared to all of those like injuries I just named and Cody Rhodes is just this small. So it's hard to put it in somebody's head, but like if you got a broken leg and they say, you want to go out there and go, and they say you can go if you want to go, and they tie that thing together and you keep going, that's some superhero stuff right there. Like I can't even tell you.
Dude, it's tough. I'm 35 and I still play baseball, not to the extent level that you're still doing professional wrestling, but like I still play on the weekends. Our team made the playoffs. We actually start playoffs this upcoming weekend, so this is nice. We were in last place the last 4 seasons. This is our 5th season since we started the team up, and we went 8-5, and we were in 2nd place. We made the playoff. Oh, no, my bad. We were in 3rd place out of 8 teams, but we still made the playoffs after going from last to 3rd, and we got a bye this past weekend. We didn't have to do the play-in game, so it's been nice, man, actually having a break and looking forward to playoffs and being legitimate. So it's real, but at the same time, I can definitely sympathize with that. Like, we get injuries out there. We got guys from 18 to 35 years old playing in our league, so that are also working regular day jobs, still chasing the dream like myself. I got a lot going on, but yeah, you got to stay busy and stay motivated, because if you don't stay busy, what's the point of living if you're not having fun? Like, a part of what we're doing We're chasing dreams, but we're having fun at the same time. That's what it's all about, impacting other people to do the same thing. That's my goal too. So
I wouldn't change it.
I love it. It's fun. You know, we've definitely, and Cody Rhodes is definitely a staple to that. We got to give it to him with that topic. And that's why I wanted to have him in here to discuss that for round 4. And we got one more great round to go through, and that's the final round here on the In or Out Sports Debate, episode 30 with Mr. Pollard. Let's get it in.
Final round.
And this is definitely one that hits home for him, and that is the independent scene has suffered tremendously as a result of the ongoing pandemic. And with your experience, you know, with this, you know, for the ongoing time like we've discussed, how do you feel about this? Are you in or are you out on this statement?
In. Yes, sir. So you got to look at it like this. What we talked about earlier, I would consider myself part-time. I'm older. I'm just being smart about it, really. I don't have a point. I'm not going to try to make it to face Roman Reigns at a WrestleMania. You know, I'm not going to WWE. So if you take all these independent scene, by the way, it's different layers of it. You have some places that have get bigger audiences. You get some places that get like, you might have 5-10 people, as opposed to other places that might have 40, 50 to 100 or 1,000, you know. So if you take all of that and you just take the equation out, well, some of these people, this is all they do. They don't do a second job or a part-time job or a full-time job and do wrestling part-time. Some of them, this is their life and career. They travel all around the country, all around the world, and they make a lot of money off their merchandise, this, that, the other. When everything shuts down, it was like everything else. Like, especially in say for like, I work in dentistry. Couldn't do anything. We couldn't do anything for 3 months. We had to rely on some other kind of way to get income, like you know, state stuff, like state money. So, you know, had to go fill out the paperwork and see what they could send you until, you know, the unemployment come through and everything. So I'm not sure what all these guys and girls did during that time, who rely on that, you know, financial income. Did they have to go back to work or find another job or what? I would like to talk to some of them to see, just to get an idea. And for me personally, being I was doing it part-time, it didn't affect me from the industry or wrestling standpoint, but I've been around people and talked to people somewhat locally. And I was really like, at that point myself, right now I'm 47. So it's a couple of years ago. It's right mid-40s. I was kind of like, man, I should be done with this now. Like I was really considering it. It plays in your head sometimes. I probably shouldn't be doing this now anyway, after the pandemic. And the only thing that really changed my mind, to be honest with you, on a personal level, I had a guy who was a close friend of mine, and he started training at GXW, Ground Zero Wrestling Training Academy, after me, mind you. So I was there way before him. He got on shows before I did. He just had the charisma and he just got it. Name was Pork Chop Johnson, John Johnson, rest in peace. He passed away. I found out, I think it was a few months afterwards. I didn't know. So it was during the pandemic. Yeah, that was a tough one right there. That one hit home hard. I mean, I was bathroom one night, and I don't, like I said, I don't cry much, but that it just hit me because he was such a great guy. He would always check on me, like, you know, you got stuff to work on here. Call me, like, call me up when you get a chance. I'm gonna talk to you about something. You know, he held us responsible. So find out that he passed away, I was like, damn, I can't stop now. Like, we used to always joke, like, my first match is gonna be my retirement match. I'm gonna go do the match, and then I'm gonna announce my retirement. It's gonna be debut retirement. I used to joke about that all the time. And the sad thing is, it almost sounded like that came true. I was like, man, well, in my head, I'm done with it. But when I found out he passed, it's like, hell no, I'm not done with it. I got to do this, if nothing else, for him, for his spirit. Like, it gave me a new light to like continue on. And I can honestly feel like I would never be as charismatic as him. He opens up the room. It's a few guys I know that do that, like Ace Montana, several people that just have that spark that the fans just love it. Like, you can't hate them. And just that alone, just like, I was like, man, I just can't stop now. Like, then that's where the other stuff clicked, where I got to help these other people become that, you know what I mean? So the pandemic changed a whole lot of that. People couldn't really go train, especially here in Virginia, because it's regulated. They didn't allow it. So I feel like some people might have had to find their way kind of on their own. And in that content, I think that it killed a lot of people's momentum if they were going through stuff. It might have gave them a break physically for a minute, of course, whatever they were doing on their own, because a lot of the gyms were shut down. I even had to get my own equipment, start getting stuff off Facebook Marketplace, Dick's Sporting Goods, like if they had flow models or whatever. And I often wonder what did a lot of these people do until they got back to do what they love doing. I think a lot of the promotions might have suffered. It's not like they had big Vince McMahon money, stuff like that. So I think it really took a while to come back up, because first they were doing stuff that people shooting videos with no audience. Of course, like same as like you saw SmackDown and Raw. Of course, they had the little screens up there with the fans on. I thought that was great. But the indies, they can't do that. Like they can do a lot of things, but they don't have that money to, keep producing shows and stuff like that. A lot of them do shows that's pay-per-view quality shows, but on a smaller scales compared to the big leagues. And honestly, I think when it started coming back up, it ramped up pretty quickly as the train got to rolling. But I'm thinking it's a lot of people that just didn't get back like they were before all of the pandemic happened, and you got all the safety concerns and such, and it just make you think like that's not just wrestling. That's like that was across the board in a lot of places like the restaurant industry, and it's harder to get. I don't know about wrestling, but it was harder for them to get people that wanted to still do that, work with the public. Wrestling, I mean, it's a contact sport. You got to get in there. You trusting what you're in there with, whatever that may be. And then you got the fans and the crowds and the audience. You got little kids out there. So like, I'm pretty sure some of that audience got affected. Like I know a lot of shows I did more so recently was majority of them were outside. Like the one we did last weekend, and it was great. Hot as I don't know what, but it was, it was that extra layer of, I want to say protection, because you're more outside than closed in some place. And some of those places we wrestle in are pretty small. Some of them are pretty big. It depends on the venue. So I think going forward, now that we went through that and got through that, we would know more so how to handle precautions and stuff. You know what I mean? So hopefully nothing like this happens again, but you just never know.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's hard to prepare for something like what we experienced in 2020. It was absolutely nuts, and I hope we never go through it again. We're still technically dealing with it, but for everything that what you said, I've got to agree. I'm in on this as well. I'll admit I recycled this topic from episode 14 with the Golden Boy Greg Anthony when he was here, because he is also another one who's experienced this. He's actually, like you were saying, a part-time wrestler, but he's the booker for Pro Wrestling Mid-South in Tennessee. So in that Tennessee territory, and he had a lot of things that were very similar to what you've said. You guys are on the very same page with a lot of what you were saying in the first and the first topic and the last one were from that episode. The other ones we had from recent discussion. But with that, I wanted to get your insight on that. And you guys are so neck and neck with the same insights with that. You guys, it's because you've experienced it. Like he knows a little bit more into it because, like you said, you're doing the part-time and you're doing the dental assistant stuff as well, which is great because you're giving back to people as well, with their health too. I mean, your teeth are very important. So definitely kudos to you for picking a profession where you're able to give back as well too. So very big highlight to you for that. With Greg, he not only does professional wrestling, part-time, but he's a full-time booker. So he's got the insight, a little bit more delved into, but everything that what you're saying, he's living it. So you guys are still on the same page with everything because you've experienced it all and been in between the ropes. And it's hard with the way the pandemic has shut stuff down. Like you said, we're in Virginia. Regulations were different in Virginia what they were in Tennessee. And he even brought that up in episode 14 and said, with what I had where I was only shut down for like 90 days, you guys were shut down a lot longer than that.
We can do about a year.
He was only shut down for 90 days, man. I believe it. I may be a little bit off, but it was very close. I want to say something wild, outlandish, like everything was getting shut down in March and he was back up and running by June or mid-July or something like that. And when I really think about that, it's like their restrictions were much different there than here, but we're near the heart of it where we're closer to the Big Apple and stuff like that. There's a lot more traffic that comes through our way than there really does when you really think about it.
That's true.
So when you put all that into perspective, of course, because we're so close to, DC and stuff like that, where we get the higher levels of exposure they want to say, or whatever BS they want to throw at us that week. It was so wild to go through that experience. It's still wild to go through it now and watching people double mask up and stuff. It's like wearing 2 diapers, man. Like, what is that really going to do? Like, what is that really? So many things. And the people that have their mask on their rear view mirrors too. And then they put it on their face like it's collecting dust, dude.
They shouldn't be doing that at all. I can tell you about that. And the funny thing is, man, my gimmick before, way before this, back in the day, I started out, and we had a lot of rides, a lot of racial, a lot of stuff going on. I used to have a gas mask when I came out. And then after I got rid of this, I had sort of one of those masks that's like a scarf that you could pull up. And it was pre-pandemic. So I was like, dang, I hope I'm not a prophet, because it was almost surreal, though. It was creepy. Like, I was like, damn, I was doing all of this stuff and teasing that way before this happened. Like, sometimes real life or reality and wrestling meet together. And like we was talking about earlier, that's the best storyline. It's like, it's real.
Hey, like we discovered, we don't live too far away from each other. If you got a hidden DeLorean over there, I'm gonna be coming over soon. Let's go back in time or go to the future. Like, we need to be using this DeLorean for the good things and help us out and give back to the community too. But we need to help ourselves out too. Let's get this DeLorean up and running. I may have a flux capacitor laying around here somewhere. We could figure this thing out, get this done, my man. So
we can do it.
But we do have some more comments to acknowledge before we get on out of here. But before that, before we go into the Mayhem culmination, we've got to acknowledge Mr. Pollard has finally, with this episode 30, he is acknowledged into the Vault of Fame here with episode 30. Ellis Pollard is here on the In or Out Sports Debate. He joins the other list of mentioned names earlier in the episode for episode 30, the second episode of Double Debate Monday. Can't wait to show you this next clip. He's got his championship with D.O. and Jeremiah Quimby, who were here for earlier this evening. Now it's time to check out the champ here, Mr. Ellis.
3-0. Episode 30. It's been an honor being on here with you. We finally got it together where we can meet and do this. And I hope it's not the last time. I probably got 1,001 more things, topics or whatever we could talk about. I wouldn't mind bringing on some other people that I know in the industry, and we can go back and forth. Some of the local people too. And just shoot the breeze and see what we come up with. So, I mean, shucks, I want to thank all the people that made the comments, or the one, really, it was really one.
We got a few more. We got a few more comments actually go over it with the very end one. But yeah, definitely shout out to them.
Yeah.
So, and what's that championship you got there before we go into the comments? Tell us a little bit about that belt you got right there.
This thing here, all right, back in the day, GXW Ground Zero Wrestling, where I started training, that was a guy named Dave, who's been in the industry for a long time. And I kind of found it by mistake. A long time ago, I saw this guy, Ron, his real name, but he was Pharaoh. I saw him wrestle at an NWA show locally. And I wanted to see something like that because it was like, it wasn't WWE. I used to go, that's another story I'm gonna have to tell you on another podcast because it's so long. But I used to go to WWE all the time. I never missed a televised event between a certain time period. So I was like, man, I want to see something smaller. So I found out about this show, and somehow I ended up finding out about GXW, which were having a show in Hopewell, Virginia. So I went down there with my daughter, and then they said they were coming to Richmond downtown. So I was like, oh man, this is gonna be great. I'm gonna go to these. The show was phenomenal, and he was up front, up close. So long story short, the announcer came around and was like, man, you too can be a wrestler. He was passing out flyers, and so I grabbed one where he was passing them around, and he put the mic in my face and said, what you going to do if you join and want to train to be a wrestler? It's like, I'm going to bring it. That's the only thing I could think of. Not to mention The Rock, but that's what came out. So fast forward all those years of training. They had at some point, they had a trainee title, right? So this one was called the Respect title. I don't know if you can see it. So the aspect of that was
hold it up one more time for a good little solo. Not to interrupt you. I'm gonna go back
if I can. There we go. See if
all right, we got it. All right, keep that story going, man.
All right. So it came a point in time where this belt was like handed to the person that was really putting in work and learning and just working hard every week, in and out. And the person that was the leader of the trainee locker room. Everybody in that moment held that belt and they deserved it. And I was like, man, I've been here for a while. I've been learning. I must not be pushing it hard enough, whatever the reason was. So it came up to what's now is the infamous for us, the infamous last day of training. We didn't know this. We had pretty much a classroom thing where we were doing history. And I was going back and forth with the guy. And I one-upped him. I answered one more, the last question. I forget what it was about the history of whatever history of wrestling or wrestlers we were talking about. And I ended up winning. So that's how I ended up with this. Fast forward, they stopped and I had the belt. And this was years ago now, like the better part of a decade now. I still got that belt. So technically I'm the longest reigning champion. So I kept it because it just like of course I'm gonna take care of everything. It's not gonna get messed up. It's here, Ron, Dave. I still got that belt. So, but it means more than that, though. It's just like all of that stuff they did before I was there, all of them taking us on training and really caring about their people, not just putting them out there. Either you got it or you don't got it, and they'll let you know. And they'll push you as long as you wanted to be pushed to go however far you wanted to go. The fact that I never made it onto one of their shows before they shut down, it meant something to me. So I was like, man, well, if I don't do nothing else, I lived the dream of actually getting in the ring, learning the ropes, literally, learning the business, learning how to set up, learning how you pay your dues, all of that. And it all came down to that word respect. And for anybody that's going to get into this business, I mean, you gotta really sit back and listen. There's more to it than what you think, mentally, physically, everything. And you got to be in it to understand it. You got to want to do it to whatever degree that is. Everybody's not physically like I'm put together pretty well. I stayed in shape all these years, and there's more to it than that. But unless you all in, don't get in it. I can tell you that now. It's not the easiest thing in the world. It's as real as it gets. People always say wrestling's fake or wrestling. These guys and girls, they're athletes. I guarantee you it's 100 athletes out there that's great at what they do, but can't just do this. Some can, but a lot can't. All in all, you either want it or you don't. That's what it comes down to.
It's all about that fire and that drive in the tank, no matter what you do, no matter what it is, no matter what you want to put your energy behind. If you don't put that energy and that work behind it, you're not going to get the results that you really want. So keep striving, keep pushing day by day. But that's a hell of a story about that background for that title. Thank you for sharing that with us here towards the end of the show. I really appreciate that. That's a great memento for you to have, because you think about it, man. There's so many other legendary wrestlers that have gone to higher levels or about where you're at, but they keep certain belts. Like there's certain ones that mean something to them. Yes. It's not just something that they just throw on them and they carry them around. Like if you have that attitude, those are the ones that don't make it anywhere. If you really have a passion for this business and a drive for it, you're going to have something like you have, like a memento, whether it's 1 belt or 20, doesn't matter the number. You have a hell of a story to say behind it. Like you just said, you didn't just came out here and say, I got a belt, I bought this on eBay or something like that. No, you had a story to come behind it. And thank you for sharing that with us. And with that, we do have some other things we got to share. We got to share one last round of comments from our fans. Let's go ahead and see what they got to say here at the end of the show. And here with the Mayhem culmination, we got a few comments to go through. Not just the chosen one, we got another comment we got some comments from our boy Paul Schofield, who was here on episode 23. Oh, sweet. So it looks like, where do I start out? So we finished off. Oh, the chosen one came back with my when I went off on him with this. I don't smoke vitamins. Pat McAfee does, though.
Come to think of it, maybe not.
I'm a fan of his show. He is admitted to where he smoked vitamins, so you're actually on to something, chosen one. But we're not talking about Pat McAfee. We're talking about you. Pat McAfee isn't coming out here with these outlandish comments like you had towards the beginning and middle of the show. So yes, that's why I lit you up. So I hope we got some more comments here. I hope you didn't say anything else as well. I'm gonna light you up again. Right here, that was Legendary by Cody. So yeah, we're talking about round 4 and him coming out with that torn pec. I'll take back my last comment. I'll ease up on you, chosen one. I'll cool it down. Peace goes here. Let's go. He's ready to rock, my man. I guess he's got off work and he's checking us out here towards the end of the day. Here for episode 30, the legendary episode 30. I'll get into that with my final word here in a minute. But the chosen one comes back. Can you get me work in wrestling?
The thing is, can you get work in wrestling? If you're local, you might need to hit me up on Facebook, or wherever you at. You're gonna have to find a real good, solid place to learn the business and the trade. Basically, you kind of get yourself into wrestling, and you learn it as you go along. It's kind of hard just for me to say, yeah, I can get you into wrestling, because I would be up in WWE. I work backstage with them a lot, with the catering and everything, but that's about as far as I got. I got some connections, and I learned some things, but you get yourself into wrestling. You just got to find that avenue, and you got to know who's BSing you and who's not too, because some places might not really give you, they might just be working you where they're just maybe training you somewhat, using you as a puppet and taking your money. So do your research.
And it's a real statement from others that I've interacted in within the business, like Greg and yourself and some others too. Like I can tell just from doing this long enough and doing things with what I do here, I can tell that it's easy to get BS. Like you got to be able to be pretty dedicated to your craft, no matter what it is. You need to be organized and need to have that drive there, and the results will show. You need to have some type of portfolio. So you need to bring something to the table rather than a question, chosen one. That's a good question. We're really not trying to give you a hard time with this one. I think that was a real honest response by Ellis and myself, and there's nothing else you can really ask for when it comes to that, because I've seen people being asked similar questions, not just about wrestling, but other professions, and been snubbed. So the fact that we acknowledged it and you got a great answer there, thank you, Ellis, for taking the time to do that too. That was a great one. Paul Schofield comes back with, I'm in on this too, and this has got to be talking about the final round. I'm in on this too. Audiences are down. Participation is down, I would assume. Facilities are low, I would guess. These are just assumptions, of course, based on the other industries I'm more familiar with.
I see.
Very, very, very good statement there by Paul. Good call out with the final round discussion we had about the independent scene. Great insight on the independent scene, EP. He's talking about you giving great insight with talking about that final round. Thank you there, chosen one. You're trying to suck up to us now, it looks like. Paul Schofield comes back with, I was late coming in. Well, hey, man, better late than never. You still got in while the show was live right here at the tail end. It doesn't matter how long you're here. It just matters that you're here. So thank you for taking the time to tune in with us, man. Thank you. Chosen one, that's a nice strap there. He's still sucking up, man. I guess he feels bad about that, the comment here at the first part of it, but that is a nice strap. A great story with that. Paul's very local with me, too. We actually grew up together. Says, I've met Pharaoh, I think.
I'm sure
either Prince George or Hopewell or something. It's been a while.
It's been most likely. I'm doing some shooting some scenes with him now. With this, he got a film company called RC Creative that's going to release independent series called Hybrid. I have to get back in touch with you on that once we get all that stuff down. And he's going to do a whole big premiere at a local theater probably. So I have to let you know when that comes up, and let you put it out there in the world.
Oh, that's awesome. But yeah, definitely let me know when that's going on. Definitely will be tuning in for that. And if y'all need any help or whatnot, let me know. I can offer what I can, Just like with planning this out, I live by Google Calendar, man. So I gotta plan time out. If I don't, it's not happening. There's so much going on. The older, you know how it is, the older you get and the more priorities you got to plan it out, man.
I thought it was gonna be the opposite when I was younger, but now it's like, man, I thought I'd be doing less. I'm doing 20 times more at least.
The world's changing. We got to change to keep up with it. That's just how it is. We got to evolve with it. So I feel you on that. Paul comes back with Hopewell. There you go. Talking about the little shout out. You were talking about Hopewell earlier in that show that you did. So he's talking about Hopewell, giving a shout out to them. Legendary story of earning a belt. Respectable, says the chosen one. Talking about your discussion with how you earned that belt back over a decade ago. And Pisco gives you love for the longest reigning champion, as you were saying, in that company's history. There you go. So they can't take it back from you. If it's defunct, you are still the longest reigning champion until otherwise. So there you go, my man. You've definitely earned it here. With the end of the Mayhem culmination, we only have one round left to go through, and that is the final round here on episode 30 of the In or Out Sports Debate. Let's take it there. We've had some great topics throughout this episode, and out of all the topics we've discussed, or just anything with inside the ropes of wrestling that you want to get off your chest, take this time, my man. Go ahead and get it on out with episode 30. Make it historic, make it legendary. Speak your truth.
Ooh-wee. Now, I come from a long history of people, neighborhoods, and it wasn't the most pleasant. I had a pleasant lifestyle, but all right, the reason I got into wrestling was what they would probably call bullying, right? So we used to have recess back in the day, early 80s, elementary school. The fact that I started watching wrestling was because of this. So it might have been a blessing in disguise. Somebody put me in a doomsday device. I didn't want them to do it. I didn't know what it was. I used to watch football and stuff. So I went home and started watching wrestling, right? And I started seeing what they were doing. I got hooked. So I started doing it back to them. They didn't want to play with me no more. So I'm a nice guy, but I came up in a hard area. And every now and then you had to scrap. I got in a fight once, lost my first fight, and I said I would never lose one again. So if you go through the whole history of everything, some people might take my kindness as a weakness, but it's been some occasions where I came this close to a straight shoot. In wrestling, that means we just going in. Somebody's going to get beat the heck up. So, you got to be careful how you deal with certain people. And I want to be very respectful and not go that route. But realistically, it happens sometimes. Brock Lesnar had to straighten somebody out a couple of times live on television. Told the guy to slow down. He didn't. He had to lay it in. So just a word of advice, who's ever coming up next, it could be anybody. And Ethan Cross, I can't wait to see you in the ring again.
You couldn't have spoken anything truer for a final word. That was great. Thank you for giving that here. And I've got to 100% follow up with what you said with what goes around comes around. So you play the game the right way. If you do it, good things will happen. And that's the motto I try to live by. And we do have a few more comments. I actually want to use my final word to get out here before they got them in right before we got out. And I'd like to use my final word to get these out. Paul goes with, I'm feeling that old school shirt, EP. Dope as hell. Haven't seen one in forever. Definitely great call out. Yeah, we don't see many with the old school logo.
I rep the old school, man. I miss the old school.
Man, it was legendary. That's what the great thing about the WWE Network was before this whole Peacock deal. Like, Peacock's still okay. You can still go back and watch it for those who couldn't afford it. It's still access to the library, okay? But we had a little bit more access with WWE Network. It wasn't as censored, and that's what I really miss is the WWE Network being able to go back and see it. And Paul even just commented with the Attitude Era. Just fired right on in with the Attitude Era. I got to give it right to him there. He's firing all cylinders right now.
Yeah, you got to go on YouTube now to watch a lot of the old content. Then you might have to go really dig deep to find some of that stuff,
The Chosen One fires back in with this, and I think he's going to earn a degree for this one. That's going to be Vince already plotting his way back in his company. Laughing emoji. And with that, we got to go with this. I mean, look, the man still has 80% of the shares in the company, all right? Let's just go back to the real cold, hard facts. However, he's not coming back. He's going to, he's going to sell them off to his family one way or another, or he's just going to hold on to them until he dies, and then they're going to be left to the family. So either way, he can still flex and make his way back in, but at this point, why? He's almost 77. He's laid a foundation for that company that you cannot replicate. You can't change it. He's not coming back. So, and why would you at this point? Enjoy your retirement. Still stay busy and find other ventures to get to. You can help The Rock out with the XFL if you want. You started before. Now you got the time. I mean, all seriousness. Now you got the time to contribute. That's true. Just because you retire from one thing, there's people who retire from something they did for 30 years and they do something else.
Yep.
If you stay complacent and you sit at home and you do nothing with your retirement, you're going to die soon. You got to stay active.
Yes.
No matter whether you're knitting or you're doing gardening or you just get another job because you just like working. You get to just choose wisely. Don't work in a warehouse factory. I mean, you're Vince McMahon. Of course, you're not going to do that. But he's going to do something with his time. We just don't know what it is. I hope he doesn't stay completely out of the spotlight, even though it was kind of a hard way to go out with the way he went out with all those allegations. We don't have to get into all that right here. That's not what our time is here for. But I think that he's not coming back. And with that, you get one more installment of this, Chosen.
Hell to the no, to the no, 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 no. Hell no, no, to the no, no.
And I think that Sandra Brown speaks for the WWE talent with this.
Ain't nobody got time for that.
Absolutely. So with that, I use my final word for one last bit of entertainment. Thank you, fans, again for commenting throughout this episode. Thank you for being here with me and with Mr. Pollard here for one great episode 30 here this evening. We've gone over a little bit over an hour there, sir. We've had a great time here. And like you said earlier, I hope we do this again. Same here. So we're going to have to stay in touch and keep this going. And we'll see. Hopefully before too long, we get you back in here.
Yes, sir.
But we only have one more thing to do, and that is look at one badass outro. For Mr. Ellis Pollard, I'm Drew Willingham. Everybody stay safe out there in these streets.